Let me ask you a question, a direct question, and I want you to be honest with yourself as you answer. Why do you feel that compulsive urge to fill every silence? Think about it. You're in a meeting, and the presenter asks if there are any questions. A silence stretches on. 1 second, 2 seconds, and you feel it, don't you? That rising tide of discomfort in your chest. Your brain starts scrambling, searching for something, anything to say to break the tension. Or you're on a first date. There's a lull in the conversation, and instead of letting that moment breathe, you jump in with a nervous story or a random observation, just to keep the noise going. You feel an almost physical need to fill the void. This urge, this compulsion to speak, feels like a personal failing, doesn't it? You walk away from those conversations replaying them in your head. Why did I say that? I talked way too much. I should have just stayed quiet. You might label yourself as nervous, insecure, or a rambler. You see it as a flaw in your character, a weakness you need to conquer through sheer willpower. But what if I told you it's not a character flaw at all? What if I told you that the urge to overtalk, to fill every silence, to chatter nervously when the pressure is on, is a deep, primal, and predictable function of the human brain? It's not a sign of your weakness. It's a sign that your brain is running a very ancient survival program that is no longer serving you. Welcome to the chatter trap. It's a neurological cage built from good intentions, ancient fears, and a misunderstanding of how influence truly works. And in this chapter, we're not just going to look at the bars of the cage, we are going to understand the very blueprints used to build it. Because once you understand the architecture of the trap, you'll see that it has a key, and that key has been in your pocket all along. The truth is, your brain loves to talk. It's practically designed for it. But the reasons why it loves to talk are the very reasons it's costing you your power, your influence, and your peace of mind. To understand this, we need to take a step back from the modern boardroom, step away from the crowded networking event, and travel back in time, deep into the wiring of the human nervous system. You see, the brain you're using to navigate a complex corporate negotiation is in many ways the same brain your ancestors used to navigate the dangers of the open savanna. It's running ancient software on modern problems. And that software has 3 specific lines of code that are responsible for catching you in the chatter trap. Let's call them the anxious amygdala, the dopamine hit, and the negativity bias. First, let's meet the primary culprit, your brain's anxious security guard. Inside your brain, nestled in the temporal lobe, is a tiny, almond-shaped cluster of neurons called the amygdala. Don't let its size fool you. The amygdala is the command center for your emotional responses, and its #1 job is to keep you safe. It is the hyper-vigilant, perpetually on-edge security guard of your mind, constantly scanning your environment for one thing: threats. For your ancestors, a threat was obvious: a predator in the tall grass, a rival tribe cresting the hill. When the amygdala spotted such a threat, it did its job beautifully. It pulled a biological fire alarm, flooding the body with stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. This was the famous fight or flight response. It shut down non-essential functions like digestion and rational thought, and primed the muscles to either fight for your life or run for the hills. Here's the critical part you need to understand. Your amygdala hasn't had a software update in a few 100,000 years. So, when you walk into a high-stakes job interview, your amygdala doesn't see a friendly person across a desk. It sees a potential threat to your social standing, your survival. When your boss puts you on the spot in a meeting, your amygdala doesn't register a simple question. It registers a public challenge to your status within the tribe. A difficult conversation with a partner? To your amygdala, it's a threat to a key alliance you need to survive. In these moments, it pulls the same ancient fire alarm. Your heart rate quickens, your palms might get sweaty, and your brain is flooded with cortisol. You are, neurologically speaking, facing a tiger in the grass. Now, what do you do when you're terrified? You have an overwhelming urge to do something, to release that unbearable tension. Since you can't physically run out of the boardroom and you can't physically fight your boss, your brain defaults to the only available action. You open your mouth. You talk. You talk to prove you're not a threat. You talk to show you're competent. You talk to deflect, to explain, to justify. You talk because the cortisol coursing through your veins is screaming at you to do something, and talking feels like doing something. It's a pressure valve for your anxiety. That nervous rambling you hate so much, it's not a personality flaw. It's a direct physiological response to an amygdala hijack. It's your ancient brain trying to save you from a perceived social predator by making noise. The problem is, what once was a survival mechanism has now become a self-sabotage mechanism. In the modern world, this verbal flight response doesn't make you look safe. It makes you look uncertain, insecure, and ultimately less powerful. But the amygdala isn't working alone. It has an accomplice, a chemical co-conspirator that makes talking feel incredibly good. This brings us to the second line of code that keeps you trapped, the dopamine hit. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter often called the feel-good chemical, but it's more accurate to call it the motivation chemical. It's the reward your brain gives itself for doing things that, from an evolutionary perspective, are good for survival. Eating a high-calorie meal? Dopamine. Winning a competition? Dopamine. Connecting with your tribe? A huge hit of dopamine. Speaking is a profoundly social act. When you share an opinion and someone nods in agreement, you get a small burst of dopamine. When you tell a story and see people listening, you get a small burst of dopamine. When you offer an idea in a brainstorming session, just the act of contributing, of being part of the group's effort, triggers a tiny release of this rewarding chemical. Your brain starts to learn a simple, powerful equation. Speaking equals social validation equals reward. This process turns talking into a subtle addiction. Think of it like a neurological vending machine. You feel a little bit of social anxiety thanks to your amygdala, so you walk up to the vending machine. You insert a coin, a quick opinion, a needless comment, a story you've told a dozen times. Out comes a little snack, a tiny hit of dopamine. It feels good for a moment. The relief is immediate, but it's not fulfilling. So, the next time you feel that anxiety, what does your brain want to do? It wants to go right back to that vending machine. You start filling silences not because you have something of value to add, but because your brain is chasing that next tiny reward. You become addicted to the chatter itself. This is why you find yourself talking over people. It's not because you're rude, it's because your brain is anticipating the reward of getting your point across and doesn't want to wait. This is why you repeat yourself. Your brain is trying to get the same hit it got the first time you made the point. You are, quite literally, feeding a neurological habit that demands more and more words to get the same small, fleeting feeling of validation. And this addiction is made even more powerful by the third, and perhaps most insidious, piece of ancient code, the negativity bias. Simply put, your brain is like Velcro for negative experiences and Teflon for positive ones. This was a fantastic survival tool for our ancestors. Forgetting where a patch of delicious berries grew was a minor inconvenience. Forgetting the spot where you were once ambushed by a predator was a fatal mistake. Your brain evolved to pay incredibly close attention to threats, insults, and dangers, while letting praise and positive experiences slide right off. In the modern world, this negativity bias translates into an overwhelming fear of social rejection. Because for our tribal ancestors, social rejection wasn't just embarrassing, it was a death sentence. To be cast out of the tribe was to be left alone to face the predators and the elements. Your brain is therefore hardwired to view social exclusion as a threat to your very existence. So, what does this have to do with the chatter trap? Everything. When you're in a group and a silence falls, your negativity bias kicks into high gear. Your brain doesn't interpret the silence as thoughtful, comfortable, or neutral. It screams, they think you're stupid. They think you have nothing to add. You're about to be found out as an imposter and cast out of the tribe. This internal alarm, amplified by the amygdala's anxiety and the brain's desire for a dopamine fix, creates an almost irresistible urge to prove your worth. And how do you prove your worth? You talk. You offer an idea, any idea, to show you're smart. You tell a joke to show you're likable. You fill the silence to demonstrate that you belong. You are talking not to communicate, but to survive a perceived social threat that exists almost entirely in your own mind. The anxious amygdala, the dopamine hit, and the negativity bias. These three forces create a powerful, self-perpetuating loop. Social situation creates anxiety. Anxiety triggers the urge to speak. Speaking provides a temporary dopamine reward. The fear of silence, driven by the negativity bias, keeps the cycle going. This isn't a trap you chose to be in. It's a trap that was wired into you over hundreds of thousands of years. Now, here is the real problem. Here is the agitation. The high cost you pay for this constant chatter. Every time you fall into this trap, every time you speak out of anxiety instead of intention, you are diluting your power. I want you to imagine that your influence, your credibility, and your authority are a finite resource, like a reservoir of water. Every unnecessary word you speak is a small leak in that reservoir. A nervous comment here. Drip. Repeating a point you've already made. Drip. Filling a comfortable silence with rambling, drip, drip, drip. Individually, these drips seem harmless, but over time, they drain your reservoir dry. People with true power and influence don't have leaky reservoirs. Their words are reserved for moments when they will have the maximum impact. They are deliberate. They are calm. They understand that power is not in the volume of their speech, but in its weight. When they do speak, it's like opening the floodgates, powerful, intentional, and game-changing. Meanwhile, the chatterer is left with a dry, empty basin, wondering why no one is listening to them anymore, even when they're shouting. Furthermore, when you're busy broadcasting, you can't receive. Your focus is entirely internal, on your own anxiety, your own need for validation, your own next sentence. You are missing everything. You miss the subtle nonverbal cues from others that tell you what they're really thinking. You miss the opportunity to listen deeply and gather the critical information you need to make better decisions. You miss the chance to understand the true motivations of the people you're trying to influence. You are playing checkers with half the board hidden from view, all because you're too busy talking to simply look. The final cost is one of perception. In the world of human social dynamics, a profound and counterintuitive truth exists. The person who needs to constantly prove their value is perceived as having very little. Calm, confident, high-status individuals are comfortable with silence. They don't feel the need to fill it. Their presence speaks for itself. The nervous chatterer, by contrast, signals neediness. They are broadcasting their insecurities to the world, and the world subconsciously takes note, labeling them as less competent, less authoritative, and less influential. So, there it is, the trap. It's neurological, it's powerful, and it's costing you dearly. But I want you to take a deep breath, because the point of this chapter was not to make you feel hopeless. It was to make you feel seen. It was to make you understand that this struggle is not your fault. And more importantly, I'm going to let you in on a secret. The very same wiring that creates the trap is the key to your freedom. Neuroplasticity, the incredible ability of your brain to rewire itself, means that you are not a slave to this ancient programming. The amygdala that creates anxiety can be trained to create calm presence. The dopamine system that creates an addiction to chatter can be rewired to reward you for strategic silence. You have the ability to hijack this system, to take these ancient survival mechanisms and repurpose them into modern influence tools. This is the path we are about to embark on together. But the journey of 1,000 miles, the journey of rewiring your brain, begins with a single step. And that first step is not some complex technique or difficult exercise. It is simply awareness. For the next few days, until you listen to the next chapter, I want you to do just one thing. I want you to become a scientist of your own mind. Your only task is to observe. Notice the urge. When you're in a conversation, I want you to simply notice that feeling in your chest when a silence falls. Notice that impulse to jump in. Notice the anxiety that precedes your rambling. Don't judge it. Don't try to stop it. Just notice it. Ah, you'll say to yourself, there it is. That's my amygdala doing its thing. This awareness is the first power move, because you cannot change a habit that you don't know you have. By simply shining the light of consciousness on this unconscious process, you are beginning to loosen its grip on you. You are taking the first step out of the chatter trap and onto the path of silent, deliberate power. And in the next chapter, we will dismantle the biggest lie your brain tells you, the myth that more is more. And we will begin to build the foundation for a new way of communicating, one where you speak less and influence more. Let's begin with a question that might feel unsettling. It might challenge a belief you've held your entire life, a belief that has been reinforced in every classroom, every boardroom, and every social gathering you've ever been a part of. What if everything you thought about proving your value through words was wrong? Think about it. From a young age, you were taught to participate. The smart student was the one who raised their hand first, who had the most to say. In your career, you've been told to speak up, to make your voice heard, to contribute. We have been conditioned deeply and profoundly to equate the volume of our speech with the value of our contribution. We believe, on a fundamental level, that the person who talks more is the one who is more intelligent, more passionate, more engaged, and ultimately more of a leader. We believe in the myth of more. More words equal more worth. More talking equals more influence. This myth is the central pillar holding up the chatter trap we discussed in the last chapter. It's the rationalization your conscious mind uses to justify the anxious impulses of your ancient brain. You're not just rambling because your amygdala is panicking. You're rambling because you believe, somewhere deep down, that you are adding value with every sentence. But I am here to tell you that this belief is not only wrong, it is the single greatest obstacle standing between you and the influence you crave. Today, we are going to demolish that pillar. We are going to expose the myth of more for what it is, a profound misunderstanding of how the human brain actually receives and processes information. And we are going to replace it with a new, powerful understanding of communication, one based on the unshakable laws of biology and psychology. To do this, we need to first understand a simple, biological truth. The human brain is not a video camera. It is not a passive recording device that diligently captures every word you say. The brain, particularly the part responsible for understanding and decision-making, is more like a high-powered CEO with an extremely limited amount of time and energy. This CEO is called the prefrontal cortex. Your prefrontal cortex is the most evolved part of your brain, located right behind your forehead. It's responsible for executive functions, logical reasoning, focusing attention, planning for the future, and comprehending complex ideas. It's the part of the listener's brain you are trying to reach. It's the part you need to convince. But this powerful CEO has a critical limitation. It gets tired very, very easily. Scientists in the field of educational psychology have a term for this: cognitive load. Cognitive load theory states that our working memory, the mental space where we process new information, is incredibly limited. It's like the RAM on your computer. If you try to open one program, it runs beautifully. 2 or 3, it's still fine. But if you try to open 20 programs at once, what happens? The system slows to a crawl. The fan starts whirring. And eventually, to save itself, the computer starts freezing programs or shutting them down. This is exactly what happens in a listener's brain when you speak too much. When you begin to speak, you are opening a program in their prefrontal cortex. If your point is clear and concise, the program runs smoothly. But if you start rambling, jumping between topics, adding unnecessary details, and repeating yourself, you are forcing their brain to open program after program after program. You tell a long-winded backstory, that's one program. You go off on a tangent about a related project, that's another program. You circle back and re-explain your main point in a slightly different way, that's a third. Meanwhile, their brain is also running background programs. What does this mean for me? Is this accurate? I'm starting to feel hungry. The cognitive load becomes too high. The listener's prefrontal cortex, that busy CEO, becomes overwhelmed. And it does what any smart CEO would do. It starts to aggressively triage. It decides what is non-essential and shuts it down. The first thing to go? The most energy-intensive task it has. Paying close, focused attention to you. Their brain doesn't do this to be rude. It does this as a survival mechanism. It has to conserve energy for what's truly important. So, while you're still talking, thinking you're building your case and proving your intelligence, their brain has already moved on. They might be nodding and smiling, but their prefrontal cortex has left the building. It's thinking about their weekend plans, that email they need to send, or simply enjoying the mental quiet of tuning you out. You kept talking, but they stopped listening minutes ago. The more you said, the less they heard. This is the great paradox of communication. Your attempt to demonstrate your value by saying more directly causes the listener to assign you less value by mentally disengaging. Let's bring this to life. I want you to picture a scene. You're sitting in a conference room for a weekly team update. The manager, let's call him Dave. Dave is smart and he means well, but he's a classic overtalker. He feels the need to justify every decision and narrate every single thought process. He starts the meeting by saying, "Okay, team, our key priority this week is to finalize the Q4 report." That's a clear, concise message. The team's prefrontal cortexes open the Q4 report program. It's running perfectly. But then Dave's anxiety kicks in. The silence in the room feels judgmental. He feels the need to prove he's on top of things. Now, the reason this is so important, he continues, is because, as you remember, last year in Q3, we had that issue with the data from the marketing department, which, as I recall, had to do with the software migration that we did back in May, or was it June? Anyway, I had a conversation with Susan about it, and she assured me that's all been fixed, but it just goes to show we need to be extra careful. Can you feel it? Can you feel the mental energy in that room just plummeting? The team's brains are now struggling under the cognitive load of Q3, the marketing data, the software migration, Susan. The core message, finalize the Q4 report, is buried under a mountain of useless information. What are the people in the room doing? They're making a mental grocery list. They're discreetly checking their phones under the table. They are physically present, but mentally they have checked out. Dave has been talking for 5 minutes, but his influence lasted for about 10 seconds. Now imagine a different leader. Let's call her Sarah. She walks to the front of the room, pauses for a moment, and makes eye contact with the team. She says, "Our only priority this week is the Q4 report. I need the final data sets from each of you by Wednesday at noon. Any roadblocks, my door is open. Let's make it happen." That's it. She's done. The message is clear, the cognitive load is minimal, the directive is powerful. The impact is 100 times greater than Dave's, precisely because she used a fraction of the words. She respected her team's mental energy, and in return, they give her their full attention and respect. This isn't just about efficiency in the workplace. Think about the salesperson who has a customer ready to buy. The customer is convinced, but the salesperson is nervous. They feel the need to keep talking, to keep selling. So they start listing more features, more benefits, introducing new complexities. They overload the customer's brain, and a new program opens up in their prefrontal cortex, the program of doubt. Wait, this sounds complicated. Is it really worth it? Maybe I should think about it. The salesperson, in a desperate attempt to add more value through words, talked themselves right out of the sale. The myth of more is a destructive force in every corner of your life. But cognitive overload is only half of the story. There's another equally powerful psychological principle at play, one that governs how humans assign value to everything. It's the law of scarcity. The law of scarcity is a basic principle of economics, but it's really a principle of human psychology. It states that when a resource is perceived as rare or limited, its value increases. When a resource is abundant, its value decreases. This is why diamonds are more valuable than tap water, even though you need water to survive. It's why we pay more for a limited edition product or a one-night-only performance. Scarcity creates value. I want you to start thinking about your words as a currency. Every single word you speak is a piece of currency you are spending from your account of influence. When you are a chatterer, when you fall into the chatter trap and spend words on every passing thought, every nervous impulse, and every unnecessary detail, you are flooding the market with your currency. You are making your words cheap. They become pennies. Because they are always available, because they are abundant, people subconsciously learn that most of them can be ignored. They learn that they need to sift through 100 of your penny words to find one that might be worth a dime. And eventually, they decide it's not worth the effort to even listen. Now, consider the person who operates from a principle of verbal economy. They don't speak often. They listen. They observe. They think. And when they finally do choose to spend their currency, their words are scarce. Because their words are rare, a powerful psychological switch is flipped in the listener's brain. The listener leans in. They focus. Their prefrontal cortex assigns immediate importance to what is being said. Why? Because the supply is limited. This must be important. Each word from this person is not a penny. It is a gold coin. Its value is amplified exponentially by the silence that surrounds it. This is the person in the meeting who listens to a 30-minute debate and then cuts through all the noise with a single, perfectly timed question that reframes the entire problem. This is the negotiator who lets the other side talk themselves into circles, revealing their weaknesses and priorities, before calmly stating their one non-negotiable term. This is the friend who, instead of offering a dozen pieces of useless advice, listens to you vent for an hour and then says the one sentence that provides perfect clarity. Their influence is not a function of how much they say. It is a function of the perceived value of what they say, a value created by its scarcity. It's time to abandon the mindset of a word spender and adopt the mindset of a word investor. A word spender speaks to release their own anxiety. A word investor speaks to create a specific effect in their listener. A word spender measures their contribution by airtime, by the quantity of their words. A word investor measures their contribution by impact, by the quality of their outcome. A word spender fills silence. A word investor leverages it. This shift in mindset is the foundation of every power move we will discuss in this book. It is the conscious choice to trade volume for value. It is the realization that true influence is not about making your voice the loudest in the room, but about making your words the heaviest. So, how do you begin this shift? You start by changing your goal in every conversation. Your old goal, driven by the myth of more, was likely, how can I add my voice? Or what can I say to prove I'm valuable? Your new goal is different. Your new goal is, what is the single most important thing that needs to be said right now? And very often, after asking yourself that question, you will find that the answer is nothing, at least not yet. Your new goal is to listen, to understand, and to wait for the moment of maximum leverage. The moment when one well-placed, high-value gold coin of a sentence will be worth more than 1,000 anxiously spent pennies. Over the next few days, I want you to carry this concept of verbal economy with you. Treat your words like money. Before you speak, ask yourself, is this a worthwhile investment? Will this comment yield a return in understanding, clarity, or connection? Or am I just spending words out of habit, just to hear the sound of my own voice? You will find this incredibly difficult at first. Your old programming, the amygdala, the dopamine urge, the myth of more, will scream at you to spend. But now you know the truth. You know that you're not just overwhelming your listener, you are devaluing your own currency. Clarity is power. Brevity is authority. The less you say, the more your words weigh. You have now broken free from the why of the chatter trap and the what of the myth of more. You understand the problem on a neurological and psychological level. The foundation is set. In the next chapter, we will begin to build. We will take the first, most practical, and most powerful step in this journey. We are going to confront the thing that triggers our urge to talk more than anything else: silence. And you are going to learn how to transform that silence from something you fear into the most potent and versatile tool in your entire arsenal of influence. You are going to learn how to weaponize it. Let's start with a moment of pure honesty. I want you to really lean into this question, to feel the answer in your body. Can you handle the discomfort of silence to unlock its hidden power? Picture it. You're in a conversation and the other person finishes their thought. And then, nothing. 1 second of silence passes. It feels long. 2 seconds pass. It starts to feel tense, awkward. 3 seconds, and it's almost unbearable. Your brain is screaming, your skin is crawling with the urge to say something, anything, to fill that terrifying empty space. This fear of silence is one of the most universal and powerful drivers of the chatter trap. We have been socially conditioned to interpret silence as a failure, a sign that the conversation has died, a signal of boredom, disagreement, or incompetence. To our anxious, ancient brain, silence is a void. And because nature abhors a vacuum, we rush to fill it with the first thing that comes to mind, usually a stream of low-value, nervously spent words. We treat silence like a hot potato, desperately trying to pass it to the other person before it burns us. But in doing so, we are throwing away the single most powerful, versatile, and underrated tool of influence that exists. Today, you are going to stop fearing silence. You are going to stop seeing it as an empty space and start seeing it for what it truly is: a canvas, a space where your words can land with greater impact, a space where the listener can actually absorb what you've said, a space where you project not awkwardness but unshakable confidence and authority. We are going to take that hot potato, cool it down, and learn how to hold it in our hands. You are going to learn how to weaponize silence. To do this, we must first understand what is actually happening in the listener's brain during a conversation. As we discussed in the last chapter, the brain is not a passive recording device. When you speak, you are essentially transmitting data packets. Each sentence, each idea, is a compressed file of information. And for that information to have any meaning, the listener's brain has to perform a series of complex tasks. First, it has to receive the data. That's the simple act of hearing. Then it has to unzip the file. That's decoding the grammar and syntax. Next, it must run a cross-check against its existing database, connecting your words to its own memories, experiences, and knowledge. Finally, it has to decide where to store this new information, assigning it a level of importance and filing it away. This entire process is incredibly energy-intensive, and it is handled by sophisticated neural structures like the hippocampus and the prefrontal cortex. And here is the crucial biological fact that most communicators completely ignore. This process does not happen instantaneously. It takes time. When you speak in a continuous, unbroken stream, you are machine gunning data packets at the listener's brain. You're not giving it the space it needs to decode, process, and store the first packet before the second, third, and fourth come flying in. The result is a system crash. The brain's processing queue overflows, and it begins to drop packets. It might catch a word here, a phrase there, but the full, nuanced meaning of your message is lost in the barrage. A strategic pause is not empty space. It is processing time. It's like giving someone a beautiful, complex painting. If you immediately snatch it away and show them another and then another, they'll have a vague impression of colors and shapes, but they won't have truly seen any of them. But if you show them the painting and then allow them a few moments of silent contemplation, they can appreciate the brushstrokes, absorb the emotion, and let the image truly imprint on their mind. A pause gives your words time to land. It allows the listener to move your point from their fleeting short-term memory into their more permanent long-term memory. It's the difference between your words being a temporary splash and a permanent dye. Without the pause, you are speaking, but your message isn't sinking in. But there's an even more powerful neurological effect at play. A pause doesn't just help the listener process what you've already said, it dramatically amplifies the importance of what you're about to say. Think of your favorite piece of music. The most dramatic moments are often preceded by a moment of total silence, a rest. The composer uses that silence to build a powerful sense of tension and anticipation. Your brain leans in, holding its breath, waiting for the resolution. And when that next note or chord finally hits, its emotional impact is magnified tenfold. A strategic pause in conversation works in exactly the same way. It creates a small, unresolved tension in the listener's brain. It's a subtle neurological cliffhanger. Their mind, which loves patterns and predictability, registers the break in your speech pattern and asks, "What's next? This must be important." This isn't a conscious thought. It's a subconscious reflex. The pause elevates the listener's state of alertness. It primes their prefrontal cortex to pay razor-sharp attention to whatever follows. You are essentially creating a neurological drumroll for your key point. By saying nothing for a second or two, you are telling the listener's brain, "Listen up, what I'm about to say really matters." Now, let's agitate the problem. Let's feel the cost of our fear of silence. I want you to recall a time you were in a conversation with someone who never paused. They talked in one long, breathless monologue. They jumped from one story to the next, one idea to the next, without leaving any room for air. How did that feel? It was exhausting, wasn't it? It felt less like a conversation and more like an assault. You felt talked at, not with. You probably found yourself nodding along on autopilot while your mind was a million miles away. And when you walked away, how much of what they said did you actually remember? Very little. It all just blended into a meaningless wash of noise. Their constant talking, their refusal to allow a moment of silence, completely devalued their own message and drained you of your energy. Now, be honest. How often are you that person? How often, in your eagerness to be heard or your fear of being boring, do you steamroll the conversation? How often do you jump in to answer a question before the other person has even finished asking it? How often do you finish other people's sentences for them? Each time you do this, you are signaling a profound lack of confidence. You are broadcasting your anxiety. You are showing the world that you are so uncomfortable with the stillness of your own authority that you must constantly fill the air with noise. You think you're projecting passion and intelligence, but what the listener's limbic brain perceives is nervousness, insecurity, and a desperate need for validation. It's a subconscious signal that undermines your status before you've even made your point. It's time to stop. It's time to claim the power you've been throwing away. It is time to learn your first and most fundamental power move, the strategic pause. This is not about just being quiet. This is about using silence as a deliberate, tactical tool. I'm going to give you 3 specific techniques, 3 ways to weaponize the pause that you can begin practicing today. The first is called the 3-second rule. It's simple, it's effective, and it will radically change your conversational dynamics. From now on, whenever you are asked a question of any substance, not "how are you," but anything that requires a thoughtful response, you are going to do the following. You are going to silently count to 3 in your head before you say a single word. 1, 2, 3. The first time you do this, it will feel like an eternity. Your anxiety will spike. Your old programming will scream at you to speak. You must resist. Just hold the space, hold the eye contact, and breathe. This simple 3-second delay accomplishes 3 critical things. First, it shatters your reflexive, anxious response. It breaks the habit of immediately jumping in, proving you're in control of your impulses, not a slave to them. Second, it buys your prefrontal cortex precious time to come online. Instead of blurting out the first reactive thought generated by your emotional brain, you are giving your rational, executive brain a chance to formulate a more thoughtful, concise, and powerful answer. You are moving from reacting to responding. Third, and most importantly, it completely changes how the other person perceives you. They don't see your 3-second pause as awkwardness. They see it as thoughtfulness. They see it as confidence. They subconsciously think, wow, they are really considering my question. They aren't just giving me a stock answer. They are deliberate and in control. In just 3 seconds of silence, you have dramatically increased your perceived authority and the weight of the answer you are about to give. Practice this everywhere. In meetings, on the phone, with your family, when the barista asks for your order. Just kidding on that last one. But in any situation where an opinion or answer is requested, implement the 3-second rule. It is the training wheels for mastering silence. The second technique is the mid-sentence emphasis. This is how you use a pause as a verbal highlighter, making your key points unforgettable. Most people, when they want to emphasize a word, do what? They say it louder. I think this is a really important point. This can come across as aggressive or even desperate. The powerful communicator does the opposite. They use silence. You build your sentence, and right before you deliver the most critical phrase, you pause, just for 1 second. For example, instead of saying, "The data shows that our most significant problem is customer churn," you would rephrase it. You would say, "The data shows that our most significant problem," 1 second pause, "is customer churn." Do you feel the difference? That tiny moment of silence creates a pocket of anticipation. It forces the listener to lean in and focus. It isolates the key phrase, separating it from the rest of the sentence and searing it into their memory. It's subtle, it's elegant, and it is devastatingly effective. Start listening for it in the speeches of great leaders. They do it all the time. It's a secret weapon hiding in plain sight. The third technique is what I call the command pause. This is how you use silence to regain control of a situation. Imagine you're giving a presentation and a few people in the back start whispering. The amateur move is to either talk louder to try and drown them out, or to stop and say, "Excuse me, could I have your attention?" Both of these moves radiate weakness. You are letting them see that they have gotten under your skin. The power move is to simply stop talking. Mid-sentence, you stop, you take a calm breath, and you hold the silence. You can turn your head gently toward the source of the distraction. Don't glare, just hold a calm, neutral gaze. What happens is remarkable. The sudden absence of your voice creates a vacuum. The other people in the room, the ones who were listening, will turn to see why you've stopped. Their collective attention will shift to the people who were whispering. The social pressure becomes immense. Within 2 to 3 seconds, the whisperers will fall silent, and the entire room's focus will snap back to you. You have not said a word. You have not shown a hint of irritation. You have simply used the power of the void to command the room. You have demonstrated unshakable authority. The 3-second rule, the mid-sentence emphasis, the command pause. These are not just tricks. They are new neural pathways you need to build. They are skills that require practice. So your mission for the next few days is to become a practitioner of the pause. Start with the 3-second rule. Notice how uncomfortable it feels at first, and then notice how people respond to you with a new level of respect. Experiment with the mid-sentence emphasis in a low-stakes conversation. Feel how it changes the rhythm and weight of your own speech. You are learning to get comfortable in the space that terrifies everyone else. And in that space, you will find a new level of calm, control, and influence. Mastering the pause is the foundational skill for everything that follows, because it's in that space of silence that you stop broadcasting and start receiving. It's in the pause that you create the opportunity to truly hear what others are saying and what they are not saying. And that is where we are going next. Now that you've learned to create silence, you will learn how to use it to gather intelligence, to understand the battlefield, and to gain the ultimate strategic advantage, all without saying a word. In our last chapter, you learned to create and hold silence. You learned to see the pause not as a void to be feared, but as a canvas, a space for your power to take shape. This was the foundational step. But a canvas is useless without an artist. A space is empty without a purpose. So now that you have created this space, we must answer a critical question. It's a question that separates the amateur from the master, the talker from the true influencer. Are you speaking to fill the air, or are you speaking with a purpose fueled by information? For most of your life, you have treated conversation like a broadcast competition. The goal was to transmit your own signal, your thoughts, your stories, your opinions, as loudly and as frequently as possible, hoping to overpower the other signals in the room. You have been so focused on your own broadcast that you have forgotten the most crucial rule of communication. You cannot receive and transmit on the same frequency at the same time. When you are talking or even just thinking about what you're going to say next, your brain's receiver is switched off. You are deaf to the world. You are flying blind. Today, you are going to flip that switch. You are going to stop seeing listening as a passive, polite act of waiting for your turn to talk. You are going to start seeing it for what it truly is, your single greatest strategic advantage. Listening is not a defensive courtesy. It is an offensive weapon. It is how you gather the intelligence you need to make your few, precious words land with the force of a thunderclap. Welcome to the listener's edge. To grasp this edge, we first need to understand a spectacular feature of the human brain, a set of specialized cells that act like a kind of mental Wi-Fi. They are called mirror neurons. Scientists discovered mirror neurons by accident. They were studying the brains of monkeys and noticed that specific neurons would fire when a monkey performed an action, like reaching for a banana. That was expected. The shocking discovery was that the exact same neurons would fire when the monkey simply watched another monkey, or even a human researcher, perform that same action. The monkey's brain wasn't just seeing the action, it was simulating the experience of that action within itself. Your brain is filled with these mirror neurons. When you watch a movie and you physically flinch when the hero gets punched, that's your mirror neuron system at work. When you see a friend yawn and you suddenly feel the urge to yawn yourself, that's your mirror neurons. This system is the biological foundation of empathy, intuition, and our ability to understand the intentions of others. It's how we connect and comprehend each other on a level far deeper than words. Your mirror neurons are constantly scanning the people around you, picking up on a torrent of nonverbal data. The tiny, fleeting micro-expressions in their face, the subtle shifts in their posture, the tension in their shoulders, the tone of their voice. Your brain takes all this data and simulates the corresponding emotional state, giving you that gut feeling, that intuition that says, she's saying yes, but something feels off, or he's acting confident, but I sense he's bluffing. This is your neurological superpower. It is a data stream of pure, unfiltered truth that is running 24/7. But here is the catch, and it is the most important thing you will learn in this chapter. Your mirror neuron system only works when your attention is focused outward. When you are talking, your attention is focused inward. Your brain is busy accessing your own memories, structuring sentences, and choosing words. When you are anxiously waiting for your turn to talk, your attention is focused inward. Your brain is running drills, rehearsing your line, planning your verbal attack. In both of these states, the states where most people spend 90% of a conversation, your empathy Wi-Fi is switched off. Your superpower is disabled. You are in the room, but you are blind to the truth of the room. You hear the words, the surface-level noise, but you miss the music. You miss the hesitation in your client's voice that signals their real objection isn't the price, but a fear of implementation. You miss the way your employees' eyes dart away when they say the project is on track, a clear signal that they're hiding a problem. You miss the subtle slump in your partner's shoulders that tells you their anger isn't about the topic you're arguing about, but about a deeper feeling of being unappreciated. You miss all of this crucial intelligence because you are too busy broadcasting. Let's agitate this. Let's make the cost of this failure painfully clear. Operating without this intelligence is like trying to perform surgery wearing a blindfold and mittens. You're bound to do more harm than good. Think of the manager in a performance review. The employee says, "The feedback is fair." The manager, eager to get to their next point, just plows ahead. But if they had been truly listening, watching, sensing, they would have noticed the employee's jaw tighten, their posture stiffen. They would have sensed the resentment and demotivation hiding behind the agreeable words. The manager thinks the review went well, but they just poured gasoline on a fire of silent discontent, and in 3 months, they'll be mystified when that employee quits. A strategic failure born from a listening failure. Think of the negotiation. You've prepared all your talking points. You know exactly what you want to say. The other side makes their opening offer. You're not really listening to their reasoning, you're just waiting for them to stop so you can deliver your brilliant counterargument. You miss the fact that they spent 5 minutes talking about their concerns over delivery timelines and only 10 seconds on price. The timeline was their real pain point, the area where they had the most flexibility. But you were deaf to it. So you go in hard on price, creating a conflict where there could have been an easy trade-off. You might win the battle on price, but you lose the war by creating an adversarial relationship, all because you missed the intelligence that was freely offered. Every single day, you are leaving influence, connection, and vital information on the table. You are making flawed decisions based on incomplete data. You are solving the wrong problems, answering unasked questions, and alienating allies, all because you are trapped in the delusion of the broadcast. It is time to change the entire paradigm. It is time to adopt the power move of treating listening not as a passive act of waiting, but as an active strategy of intelligence gathering. Your new goal in a conversation is not to win the argument or to sound the smartest. Your new goal is to create information asymmetry. Information asymmetry is a concept from economics where, in a transaction, one party has more or better information than the other. The party with the superior information almost always has the advantage. In any interaction, you want to be that party. And you achieve this by talking less and listening more. How do you do it? I'm going to teach you a technique so simple it will feel almost like cheating. It's called the echo. The echo consists of taking the last 2 or 3 key words the other person just said and repeating them back with a slightly upward questioning inflection. That's it. It is the conversational equivalent of a martial arts master who defeats an opponent using only their own momentum. Let's see it in action. Imagine your colleague says, "I'm just not sure we can hit that deadline. The whole launch plan is incredibly ambitious." The amateur response, the broadcast response, would be to immediately jump in with a solution or a defense. "Well, we can hit it if we all just work a little harder." Or, "What part of it is ambitious? It seems fine to me." This response immediately creates opposition. You are now in a debate. The master, using the echo, does this instead. Your colleague says, "The whole launch plan is incredibly ambitious." You pause for a second, make eye contact, and say gently, Incredibly ambitious? And then you shut up. You hold the silence you learned to master in the last chapter. A miracle will happen. 99% of the time, the other person will not hear an accusation or a challenge. They will hear an invitation to elaborate, to explain, to dig deeper. They will feel that you have not just heard them, but that you are trying to understand them, and they will continue. Yeah, what I mean is, the marketing timeline relies on the product being finalized by the 15th, but we haven't even finished the quality assurance testing. The two things just don't line up. Boom! In 5 seconds, using only 2 words, you have moved from a vague complaint, incredibly ambitious, to a specific, actionable problem, a timeline conflict between marketing and QA. You didn't have to argue. You didn't have to guess. You simply held up a mirror to their own words, and they gave you the intelligence you needed. Let's try it again. Your client says, "Your price is just higher than we were expecting." The amateur salesperson panics and immediately starts defending the price. Well, it's because of our superior quality and our excellent customer service, and they are broadcasting. They are losing. The power mover does this. The client says, "Your price is just higher than we were expecting." You pause, you lean in slightly, you say, "Higher than you were expecting?" And you wait. The client will feel compelled to fill the void you have created. Yes, the proposal we got from your competitor was about 15% lower. Now you have a specific piece of data. Or they might say, "Yes, our CFO set a budget for this quarter that we really can't exceed." Now you know the problem isn't your competitor, it's an internal budget constraint. The strategy to solve those two problems is completely different. The echo reveals the true nature of the battlefield before you fire a single shot. The echo is your secret weapon because it bypasses the ego. You aren't arguing with them, you are helping them clarify their own thoughts. It builds instant rapport, it extracts critical information, and most importantly, it forces you to stay quiet and keep your own assumptions in check. As you become more skilled, you can move to an even more advanced level of listening. You can start listening not just to what is said, but to what is not said. You listen for the gaps. People often communicate most clearly through their omissions. When you are truly listening, with your mirror neurons fully engaged, you start to notice the patterns. You notice the empty spaces in their stories. You're in a project update meeting. Your team member gives a glowing report on progress, on team morale, on hitting their milestones. But they never once mention the budget. In a 10-minute update, the word budget is a ghost. That is where the problem is. The silence is louder than the words. A powerful follow-up isn't "great report." It's a gentle, curious question. "That all sounds fantastic. I didn't hear you mention the budget. How are we tracking on that front?" You're interviewing a candidate for a job. You ask them about their biggest successes. They talk at length about the projects they completed and the results they achieved. But they only ever use the word "I." "I increased sales by 30%. I launched the new product." They never use the word "we." The gap, the unspoken word, tells you everything you need to know about their ability to be a team player. Listening for the gaps is about pattern recognition. It requires you to be fully present, absorbing not just the data being presented, but the shape of the data, the holes in it. It is the highest form of intelligence gathering. Your mission, now, is to go into the world and become an intelligence agent. Your tools are simple: the silence you've practiced and the echo you've just learned. For the next few days, I want you to consciously switch your goal in conversations. Your goal is not to inform, persuade, or impress. Your goal is simply to understand. Use the echo. Try it in a low-stakes conversation with a friend or family member. See how it encourages them to open up. See how much more you learn by saying less. Pay attention to the nonverbal data. What is their body telling you that their words are not? Listen for the gaps. What important topic is everyone in the meeting conveniently avoiding? You have spent a lifetime learning how to speak. Now you must learn how to listen, because it is in listening that you will find the ammunition you need. It is in listening that you discover the opponent's weaknesses, their true desires, and the path to victory. Once you have gathered this pure, high-quality intelligence, what do you do with it? How do you then formulate your own message? You don't just ramble. You don't just react. You use that intelligence to build a message of such clarity and precision that it becomes irrefutable. You become an architect of words. And that is exactly where we are going next. Let's take stock of where we are. In the last 2 chapters, you have made a monumental shift. You've learned to embrace the silence that once terrified you, transforming it from a void into a powerful tool. You've switched your brain's default setting from broadcast to receive, turning every conversation into an opportunity to gather priceless intelligence. You now have the space, and you have the data. This brings us to the moment of truth, the moment you finally do decide to speak. So let me ask you, how can you say in 10 words what others take 100 to say? Because if you go through all the work of creating silence and listening deeply, only to open your mouth and let a disorganized, rambling stream of thoughts tumble out, you've wasted your advantage. You've gathered the finest building materials in the world, pure, unvarnished intelligence, only to dump them in an untidy heap on the ground. The problem is, for most of us, that's our default mode of communication. We speak as we think, and our thinking process is not a straight line. It's a chaotic web of associations, memories, anxieties, and half-formed ideas. We speak in a stream of consciousness. We start with our main point, but then a related thought pops into our head, so we follow it. Then that reminds us of a story, so we tell it. We then try to circle back to our original point, but we've forgotten exactly what it was, so we re-explain it in a slightly different way, hoping to find the clarity we lost. This isn't your fault. This is your brain on autopilot. It's the path of least resistance. It takes far less mental energy to simply open the floodgates of your mind than it does to build a dam, a reservoir, and a carefully controlled aqueduct. But the result of this lazy stream of consciousness communication is that your brilliant, vital message gets buried. It's like a diamond packed inside a giant box of styrofoam peanuts. Your listener might hear your voice, but they'll never find the gem. And after a minute of sifting through the useless filler, they simply give up. Now, let's agitate this. Let's make this real. Have you ever walked away from an important conversation, a job interview, a debate with a colleague, a heart-to-heart with a loved one, and smacked your forehead in frustration? The entire drive home, you're haunted by a single painful thought. What I should have said was. The perfect response, the killer statistic, the clear, eloquent, devastatingly effective point, it arrives in your mind with crystal clarity, but hours too late. The French have a beautiful term for this. L'esprit de l'escalier, or the spirit of the staircase. It's the witty comeback you think of on the stairs after you've already left the party. We experience this and we blame our memory. We think, I'm just not quick on my feet. But this is not a failure of memory or wit. It is a failure of preparation. It's the direct, predictable consequence of entering a conversation with a messy, disorganized mind. Your brain did have the diamond in there somewhere, but you hadn't done the work to locate it, clean it off, and have it ready for presentation. So instead, you dumped the whole box of styrofoam peanuts on the table. This reactive, disorganized communication is a symptom of your emotional, impulsive brain, your amygdala, being in the driver's seat. The amygdala feels the pressure of the conversation and screams, "Just say something." The result is a verbal data dump. The calm, rational, planning part of your brain, your prefrontal cortex, gets sidelined. Today, you learn how to put your prefrontal cortex back in charge. You will stop being a mere speaker of words and become an architect of words. You will learn a power move so simple and so effective that it will eliminate staircase wit from your life forever. You will learn to build your message before you speak, ensuring that when you do spend your precious verbal currency, it delivers maximum impact. To do this, we need to honor 2 fundamental laws of psychology that we touched on earlier, the primacy and recency effects. These principles state that the human brain has a powerful bias towards remembering what it hears first, primacy, and what it hears last, recency. Think of any great speech. You remember the powerful opening line, and you remember the stirring conclusion. The middle, it gets fuzzy. In a long, rambling monologue, the middle can be 95% of the speech. You are creating a vast wasteland of forgettability between your opening and your close. You are actively working against the basic wiring of your listener's brain. The master of influence, however, understands this. They know that the shorter the message, the less middle there is. A brief, powerful, well-constructed message makes the beginning and the end almost simultaneous. It creates a closed loop of memory, making the entire message sticky and unforgettable. Brevity isn't just about saving time. It's a neurological hack for increasing retention. So, how do we achieve this powerful brevity? How do we build a message that respects the brain's need for structure and honors the law of scarcity? You do it by using a tool I call the message blueprint. This isn't a complicated, rigid script. It's a simple, three-part mental model that you can use in seconds, right in the middle of a conversation, during that strategic pause you've learned to create. It's a filter for your thoughts, a way to instantly organize the chaos into a powerful structure. Before you speak, you will run your thoughts through these three simple questions. What is the one single thing I want them to know? This is the point. Why does it matter to them? This is the so what. What do I want them to do? This is the action. That's it. The point, the so what, the action. Let's break down why this is so powerful. First, the point. The key word here is one. What is the one single thing I want them to know? This question is a powerful forcing function. It compels you to distill your chaotic, sprawling thoughts down to their absolute, undiluted essence. It forces you to find the single diamond in the box. You might have 10 things you could say, but the blueprint forces you to choose the one thing you must say. This single act of discipline is the ultimate antidote to rambling. It provides a sharp, clear spearhead for your entire message. Second, the so what. This is the most crucial and most often neglected part of communication. This question, why does it matter to them, is the engine of influence. It forces you to perform a 180-degree shift in perspective. You stop thinking about what you want to say and start thinking about what they need to hear. It activates your empathy. It forces you to tune your message to the listener's frequency, to answer the silent question that is always running in their mind. What's in it for me? WIIF. A message without a clear so what is just information. A message with a clear so what is motivation. It connects your point to their world, their goals, their fears, their ambitions. It's the difference between saying, "We need to increase our marketing budget," and saying, "By strategically increasing our marketing budget, we can lighten your workload by generating more qualified leads, making it easier for you to hit your sales commissions." One is a dry fact. The other is a compelling vision. Finally, the action. What do I want them to do? A message that doesn't lead to a clear next step is a conversational dead end. It leaves the listener thinking, "Okay, interesting point, now what?" The action provides a destination. It tells the listener's brain exactly where to go with the information you've just provided. And it doesn't always have to be a physical action. The action could be what you want them to think differently, how you want them to feel, or the decision you want them to make. I want you to approve this budget. I want you to feel confident in our strategy. I want you to consider this alternative perspective. A clear action turns a passive listener into an active participant. Let's see the message blueprint in practice. Let's go back to our rambling manager, Dave. He walks into a meeting. His amygdala is firing because quarterly numbers are down. He just opens his mouth and the disorganized stream pours out. "Okay, team, so the latest reports just came in and honestly, they're not great. I was looking at the metrics for the Western Territory, and there's a definite downward trend, which is a problem because we all know Q4 is our biggest quarter and corporate is watching us closely. We can't afford a repeat of what happened 2 years ago. I need everyone to really dig deep and start thinking about how we can turn this ship around. We need more proactivity. What's the takeaway here? It's a foggy mess of anxiety. There's no clear point, no benefit to the listener, and no specific action. The team leaves feeling confused and demoralized. Now, let's imagine that same manager, Dave, has learned the message blueprint. He feels the same anxiety, but instead of blurting, he takes a 3-second strategic pause. In that pause, he asks himself the 3 questions. The point? Sales in our most important region are falling fast. So what? This puts our yearly bonuses in jeopardy. The action? I need one concrete turnaround idea from each person by tomorrow. He's now an architect. He has a blueprint. He opens his mouth and says, "The point. Good morning. The new report shows sales in the West region dropped 15% last month. The so what? As you know, that's our most profitable region. If that trend continues, none of us will hit our yearly targets and our bonuses will be off the table." The action. So here's what we're going to do. I need each of you to come to me by end of day tomorrow with one specific, actionable idea to reverse this trend. We're going to solve this starting now. Do you feel the difference? It's the difference between a foghorn and a laser beam. The second version is shorter, clearer, and 100 times more powerful. It creates clarity, urgency, and a specific path forward, all because Dave took 5 seconds to be an architect instead of a rambler. This works everywhere. Asking for a raise. Before, you might ramble, "Hi boss, I've been here a while now and I feel like I've been doing a good job and I've taken on a lot of new responsibilities." It's weak and unfocused. Now you use the blueprint. Pause. Think. 1. Point. I've consistently exceeded the expectations of my role. 2. So what? This has directly contributed to the team's success and the company's bottom line. 3. Action. I'd like to discuss a 15% salary increase to reflect that value. The structure itself projects confidence. It transforms a nervous request into a business case. Your mission is to become an architect. For the next few days, before you speak in any situation of consequence, in an email, in a meeting, in a serious conversation, I want you to run your thoughts through the message blueprint. You can even jot it down on a notepad. Point, so what, action. At first, it might feel slow or robotic. That's normal. You are building a new mental muscle. You are forging a new neural pathway that leads from your prefrontal cortex to your mouth, bypassing the panicked, rambling route of the amygdala. With practice, this will become second nature. It will become the way you think. It will be the powerful, invisible framework behind every word you speak. You now have the tools to create silence, to listen within that silence, and to build a message of devastating clarity. You've architected the what of your communication. But we are not just disembodied voices. The most perfectly crafted message in the world can be completely undermined if it's delivered from a place of fear and insecurity. Your body is broadcasting a message of its own. And in our next chapter, we are going to ensure that message is one of pure, unshakable power. Because as you're about to learn, the body never, ever lies. You are now an architect. You've learned to build your messages with the precision of a master craftsman, using a blueprint that ensures every word is intentional, powerful, and lands exactly where you want it to. You have the what of your message perfectly designed. But now we must confront a deeper, more primal truth of human communication. A perfectly constructed message delivered by a weak messenger will always fail. So let me ask you a question that gets to the very core of how you show up in the world. Is your body language amplifying your message, or is it betraying your words? I want you to imagine two people delivering the exact same sentence. I am absolutely confident that this is the right path forward. The first person stands tall, their shoulders back, their feet firmly planted on the ground. They make direct, warm eye contact. Their hands are still, or they use one deliberate gesture to emphasize the word right. You don't just hear their confidence, you feel it. It radiates from them. You trust them instinctively. The second person says the exact same words, but they are slumped slightly. Their weight is shifted nervously from one foot to the other. Their eyes dart around the room, only briefly making contact with yours. Their hands are fidgeting in their pockets or ringing each other. You hear the word confident, but every single signal their body sends is screaming anxious, uncertain, and untrustworthy. Who do you believe? The answer is obvious, isn't it? You believe the first person, every single time. This isn't a conscious choice you make. It's a lightning-fast, subconscious judgment made by the oldest part of your brain. And this is the critical lesson of this chapter. In the courtroom of human perception, when the testimony of the words contradicts the testimony of the body always wins. Every single time. We spend our lives obsessing over the words we use, carefully crafting our arguments and presentations. But we forget that we are broadcasting on two channels simultaneously. Channel 1 is verbal, the words we speak. Channel 2 is nonverbal, the constant stream of signals our body is sending. And if these two channels are not in sync, you create a painful, jarring experience for the listener. It's like watching a badly dubbed foreign film. The lips are moving, but the words don't match. It creates a feeling of dissonance, of inauthenticity. And the listener, to resolve this conflict, will always choose to believe what they see over what they hear. To understand why this is, we have to revisit the architecture of the human brain. When you communicate with someone, you are not talking to one brain, you are talking to two. First, there's the neocortex. This is the new, evolved, logical brain. It's the part that understands language, follows rational arguments, and processes data. This is the brain you think you're talking to, but it's slow and it's lazy. Long before your words ever reach the neocortex, they have to get past the gatekeeper. That gatekeeper is the ancient, primal, emotional brain. This includes the limbic system and the brainstem. This is the brain of instinct and survival. It's incredibly fast, it's constantly scanning for threats and opportunities, and it does not understand language. It speaks the ancient, universal language of the body. When you walk into a room, before you've even said hello, the limbic brains of everyone else in that room have already scanned you and made a series of snap judgments. Are you friend or foe? Are you a leader or a follower? Are you a threat or are you someone to be dismissed? This judgment is made in less than a second, based entirely on your posture, your movements, and your eye contact. If your nonverbal signals broadcast weakness, nervousness, or insecurity, their limbic brain immediately flags you as low status. It sends a memo up to the slow, logical neocortex that says, "Pay less attention to this one. What they have to say isn't important for our survival." Your message is dead on arrival. You could have the most brilliant, world-changing idea, but it will be filtered through the powerful initial judgment that you are not someone to be taken seriously. But it gets even deeper. Your body isn't just broadcasting a message to others, it's broadcasting a message directly back to your own brain. The field of embodied cognition has shown conclusively that the connection between your body and your mind is a two-way street. We think our emotions change our posture. When we feel sad, we slump. That's true. But it's also true that our posture changes our emotions. When you adopt a posture of confidence, standing tall, taking up space, your body sends a signal to your brain that says, "We're in a position of power." In response, your brain chemistry can actually change. Studies have suggested that powerful, expansive postures can, in some contexts, lead to a decrease in the stress hormone cortisol and an increase in hormones associated with confidence and dominance. You don't just look more confident, you begin to feel more confident. Your body changes your mind. Now let's agitate the problem. Let's feel the deep and painful cost of ignoring this channel. Think about the last time you had to give a presentation. You knew your material inside and out. You had the perfect words, but your heart was pounding. You stood behind the lectern, gripping it like a life raft. Your voice trembled slightly. You read from your slides, your eyes glued to the screen, afraid to make eye contact. Your message, no matter how brilliant, was delivered in a package of pure fear. What did the audience take away? Not your brilliant data. They took away your discomfort. They felt awkward for you. Your body's broadcast of anxiety completely drowned out your words' broadcast of information. Think about a negotiation. My bottom line is firm. But as you say the words, you break eye contact. You nervously clear your throat. You slightly shrug one shoulder. Your body just betrayed you. It sent a clear signal to the other person's primal brain. He's bluffing. Push harder. Your words said strength, but your body whispered weakness. This incongruence is the silent killer of influence. It's what makes you seem untrustworthy when you're being honest. It's what makes you seem weak when you're trying to be strong. It's what makes you seem insecure when you're trying to project confidence. So, how do we fix this? How do we stop our bodies from betraying us and start using them as a powerful amplifier for our message? We do it by mastering 3 simple, deliberate, nonverbal power moves. This is not about learning to fake it. This is about learning to inhabit the physiology of power so that it becomes your natural state. The first power move is the anchor. Nervous energy is like electricity. It needs to go somewhere. In an untrained person, it leaks out in 1,000 different ways. Bouncing knees, tapping feet, fidgeting hands, swaying from side to side. These are all signals of instability. They tell the observer's limbic brain that you are ungrounded and uncomfortable. The anchor is how you stop these leaks and signal deep, unshakable stability. It's the foundation of your physical presence. Right now, wherever you are, I want you to try this. Stand up. Place your feet about shoulder width apart, with your weight distributed evenly. Don't lock your knees. Now, imagine that roots are growing from the soles of your feet down into the earth, anchoring you to the spot. Roll your shoulders back and down, opening up your chest. Let your hands rest naturally at your sides, or clasp them gently in front of you around your navel. This is the anchor. It feels powerful, doesn't it? When you are anchored, you are a mountain. When you are fidgeting, you are a leaf in the wind. A mountain inspires confidence. A leaf is ignored. Before any important conversation, before you walk into a meeting, before you step on a stage, take 10 seconds to set your anchor. It does 2 things. First, it sends a powerful, instantaneous signal of calm and stability to everyone who sees you. Second, it sends that same signal to your own brain, short-circuiting the physical feedback loop of anxiety. The second power move is the gaze. The eyes are the most powerful tool of human connection, but most people use them terribly. They either avoid eye contact, which signals submission, dishonesty, or insecurity, or they stare with an unblinking intensity, which signals aggression and creates discomfort. The gaze is about using your eyes to create connection and project confidence without intimidation. The rule is simple. When you are speaking to one person, hold eye contact for about 4 to 5 seconds at a time, long enough to truly connect. Then, briefly and calmly glance to the side as if you are accessing a thought, before gently re-engaging. This brief break prevents your gaze from feeling like an interrogator's stare. When you are speaking to a group, your goal is to make each person feel like you are talking directly to them. Don't just stare at the one friendly face in the room or sweep your eyes back and forth like a security camera. Instead, land your gaze on one person for a full sentence or thought. Then move to another person in a different part of the room for the next sentence. You are creating a series of brief individual connections. This makes your message feel personal and engaging, and it projects an aura of commanding, inclusive leadership. The third power move is the conductor. Your hands are either a major distraction or a powerful asset. Wild, flailing gestures, hands shoved in pockets, arms crossed defensively, these all sabotage your message. Fidgeting with a pen or a ring broadcasts your anxiety to the entire room. The conductor is about using your hands the way a symphony conductor uses a baton, with purpose, precision, and intention to guide the listener's attention. Your default or ready position should be with your hands in a neutral space, perhaps gently clasped around your navel, as in the anchor. From here, you deploy gestures. Your gestures should be crisp and congruent with your words. When you are making a list, use your fingers to count off the points. We have 3 priorities. First, when you are talking about something inclusive, use open palm gestures as if you are offering the idea to the room. When you want to make a strong, definitive point, you can use a clean, single karate chop motion. The key is that every gesture has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It starts from the ready position, performs its function, and then returns. This eliminates nervous fidgeting and makes you look deliberate and in control. The anchor, the gaze, the conductor. These are not separate techniques. They are a unified system for broadcasting confidence. Your mission is to become conscious of your second channel. Start by observing others. Watch a powerful speaker on a TED Talk. Notice how they are anchored. Notice how they use their gaze. Notice how every gesture has a purpose. Then start observing yourself. When you feel anxious, where does that energy leak out? Do you bounce your knee? Do you avoid eye contact? Just notice it without judgment. Then start practicing. Find your anchor before your next important phone call, even though no one can see you. Why? Because your body will change your mind, and your newfound calm will be transmitted through your voice. In your next meeting, practice the gaze. You are aligning your 2 channels so that your words and your physiology are broadcasting one unified, undeniable message of power. You are now equipped to control the silence, to listen for intelligence, to architect your words, and to amplify your message with your body. You are in control of your output. But what happens when the situation turns hostile? What do you do when you face pushback, criticism, or outright conflict? How do you maintain this calm authority when your amygdala is screaming that you are under attack? That is where we are going next. You are about to learn how to absorb conflict with grace and rewire confrontation into collaboration, using fewer words than you ever thought possible. By now, you have made a profound internal shift. You've learned to control the space around you with silence, to gather intelligence by listening, to architect your message with precision, and to align your body with your words. You are in command of your own output. You are a fortress of calm, deliberate power. But influence is not a monologue. It is a dance. And eventually, the other person will make their move. They will present an idea, an objection, a belief that runs counter to your own. And in this moment, you will face a critical choice, a choice that determines whether you build a bridge or a wall. So let me ask you, why make a statement when you can ask a question that does the work for you? Think about your natural, programmed instinct when you hear something you disagree with. Your instinct is to counter with a statement. They say, "I think we should take strategy A." You immediately respond, "Strategy A will never work. Strategy B is clearly the better option." They say, "I'm not happy with your performance." You say, "I've been working harder than ever." Each of these interactions has the same structure: statement, counterstatement, assertion, counterassertion. It is a verbal duel. Your statement is a battering ram, and you are trying to smash down the door of their opinion. Sometimes, if you have enough authority or brute force, you might break the door down. But you will be left standing in a pile of rubble, having created resentment, defensiveness, and a relationship built on conflict, not collaboration. What if there was another way? What if, instead of a battering ram, you could use a key? A key that doesn't smash the door, but instead unlocks it from the other side, so the other person willingly opens it for you. That key is a well-crafted question. Today, you are going to stop seeing conversations as debates to be won with the force of your statements. You are going to learn how to control the direction, tone, and outcome of any interaction by asking powerful, strategic questions. You are going to stop being a warrior, and you are going to become a surgeon. You are going to learn how to use the question as a scalpel. Our deep primal conditioning is to see disagreement as a threat. When someone challenges our idea, it's not just an intellectual exercise. It can feel like a personal attack on our intelligence, our status within the tribe. As we know, when the brain perceives a social threat, the amygdala sounds the alarm. It triggers the fight or flight response. The verbal equivalent of fight is to argue, to get louder, more forceful, and to double down on our own position. When you make a strong declarative statement in the face of disagreement, you are essentially inviting the other person's amygdala to a fight. You are throwing a punch. And what is the natural response to being punched? It is to punch back. Their defenses go up. Their prefrontal cortex, the logical, creative, problem-solving part of their brain, goes offline. Their ego becomes fully engaged. The conversation is no longer about finding the best solution. It has become a battle for survival, a zero-sum game of I'm right and you're wrong. Now let's feel the deep frustration of this. I want you to recall the last time you were in a truly pointless argument. Maybe it was a political debate with a family member, a disagreement with your partner about chores, or a creative conflict with a colleague. Picture the scene. You stated your point, they stated theirs. You repeated your point, but louder. They repeated theirs, but with more aggressive words. Were you listening to them? No. You were reloading. You were planning your next verbal volley while they were speaking. And were they listening to you? Of course not. They were doing the exact same thing. It's an exhausting, fruitless, and damaging dance. You both walk away angry, misunderstood, and more entrenched in your original positions than when you started. You used your battering ram, they used theirs, and now all you have is two broken doors and a wall of resentment between you. You have spoken many words, but you have achieved less than nothing. You have actively destroyed influence. This is the inevitable result of treating conversation as a battle of statements. But we can choose to play a different game entirely. The secret lies in understanding the neurological effect of a question versus a statement. A statement, as we've seen, is often perceived as a challenge, triggering a defensive posture. It presents a finished product, a closed loop of logic, and invites the listener to either accept it or reject it. A question, on the other hand, does something magical in the listener's brain. An open-ended, genuine question is not a threat. It is an invitation. It is a cognitive puzzle. When you ask someone a question like, "Can you walk me through your thought process on that?" their brain cannot help but engage. The question acts as a direct prompt to their prefrontal cortex. You are, in effect, borrowing their most powerful neural hardware and getting it to work for you. Instead of their brain fighting your idea, their brain is now busy searching its own database, building logical connections, and articulating a response. You have shifted them out of their defensive, emotional amygdala and into their collaborative, rational prefrontal cortex. The wall comes down, the ego is disarmed, and a real conversation becomes possible. This is a modern application of a 2,400-year-old technique, the Socratic method. The Greek philosopher Socrates was legendary for his wisdom, but he never lectured. He never made grand statements of truth. Instead, he taught exclusively by asking questions. He would ask a series of simple, incisive questions that would lead his students on a journey of their own logic, allowing them to discover the contradictions in their own thinking and arrive at a deeper truth on their own. This is the pinnacle of influence. By asking the right questions, you guide the other person to the conclusion you want them to reach, but you do it in a way that makes them feel like it was their idea all along. When a person feels ownership over an idea, their resistance to it drops to zero. They will champion it, defend it, and execute on it with a passion they would never have for an idea that was forced upon them. You haven't just bypassed their ego, you have enlisted it as your greatest ally. So, let's get practical. Let's learn the power move of the scalpel question. We call it a scalpel because it is not a blunt instrument. It is precise. It is used to get beneath the surface of a problem, to cut away the unhealthy tissue of misunderstanding and reveal the path to a solution. There are several types of scalpel questions you can add to your surgical kit. Let's cover 4 of the most effective. The first is the clarifying question. Its purpose is to understand before you seek to be understood. When someone says something you disagree with or don't understand, your instinct is to immediately refute it. The surgeon, however, first seeks to diagnose. Instead of saying, "That deadline is impossible," you ask a clarifying question. "That's an interesting target. Can you help me understand how you see us getting there?" Instead of saying, "Your feedback doesn't make any sense," you ask, "I want to make sure I understand. Can you walk me through a specific example of what you're seeing?" This question is disarming. It shows respect. It honors their perspective and gives you vital intelligence about the assumptions and data they are using, all while avoiding a direct confrontation. The second type is the reframing question. This scalpel is used when a conversation is stuck, bogged down in negativity or limited thinking. Your goal is to lift the participants out of the weeds and get them to look at the problem from a completely different altitude or angle. Instead of saying, "We can't afford to do this," you ask a reframing question. Let's set the budget aside for one moment. If money were no object, what would the ideal solution look like? This frees people from their constraints and opens the door to innovative thinking. Once you have the ideal vision, you can work backwards to find a practical version. Instead of saying, "The marketing and sales teams are just not communicating," you ask, "What would a seamless collaboration between marketing and sales need to happen for our customers to have a perfect experience?" This reframes the problem from a place of blame to a place of shared purpose and customer centricity. The third and perhaps most powerful type is the challenging question. This must be used with care, but it is the scalpel that can cut right to the heart of a faulty assumption. The key is to challenge the idea, not the person. You do this with genuine collaborative curiosity. Instead of saying, "That assumption is wrong," you ask a challenging question. That's one possibility. What would have to be true for that to be our best option? And what if the opposite were true? Instead of saying, "We've always done it this way, and it's the only way," you ask, "I respect the process that got us here. As a thought experiment, if we were starting this company from scratch today, how would we design this process?" This kind of question depersonalizes the challenge. You are not attacking their sacred cow. You are inviting them to join you in a creative, hypothetical exercise. It allows people to detach from their ego and analyze an issue with fresh eyes. The fourth type is the redirecting question. This is your tool for taking a conversation that is spiraling into conflict or complaint and steering it back towards productive action. When a colleague is venting endlessly about a problem, instead of saying, "Complaining about it won't solve anything," you first validate, then you ask a redirecting question. It sounds incredibly frustrating. Given those challenges, what's one small step we could take right now to improve the situation? This acknowledges their emotion, which calms the amygdala, and then immediately engages their prefrontal cortex in problem-solving mode. It shifts the energy from helplessness to agency. Your mission is to stop making so many statements. For the next week, I want you to enter every conversation with the mindset of a curious surgeon, not a combative warrior. Make it a private game. See how long you can go in a disagreement without making a declarative counterstatement. Instead, arm yourself with scalpel questions. When your partner says, "You never help around the house," resist the urge to say, "Yes, I do." Instead, try a clarifying question. "It sounds like you're feeling overwhelmed. Can you tell me what's on your mind?" When your team is stuck, resist the urge to dictate a solution. Ask a reframing question. What if we were our own biggest competitor? What would we do to put ourselves out of business? You will be stunned by the results. You will find that arguments dissolve. People will open up to you in ways they never have before. They will call you a brilliant strategist and a great listener, when all you were really doing was asking better questions. You will find that you are controlling the flow of conversation, guiding people to better conclusions, and building stronger relationships, all while saying less than almost anyone in the room. You have now learned to command a room with your presence and to steer a conversation with your questions. You are equipped for the day-to-day dance of influence. But there are moments that are not the day-to-day. There are moments of intense pressure where you only get one shot to make your case. The job interview, the investor pitch, the plea to a jury. In these high-stakes crucibles, you don't have time for a lengthy Socratic dialogue. You need to deliver a message of such condensed power and clarity that hits like a bolt of lightning. You need to master the art of the one-liner. And that is precisely where we are going next. We have arrived at the ultimate test. It is easy to be calm when the seas are calm. It is easy to be deliberate and thoughtful when everyone in the room is agreeable. But what happens when the storm hits? What happens when you are faced with criticism, anger, or a direct personal challenge? I want you to be brutally honest with yourself as you answer this final critical question. When someone challenges you, is your first instinct to talk more and get louder? Think of the last time you were in a heated disagreement. Someone accused you of something you didn't do. A colleague publicly criticized your work. Your partner, in a moment of anger, said something that cut you to the core. In that instant, what happened inside you? For most of us, the reaction is as swift and uncontrollable as a lightning strike. A hot surge of energy floods our chest. Our rational mind, which was so clear just a moment before, evaporates. Our entire being is consumed by a singular, overwhelming impulse. Defend, push back, attack. And how do we do that in the modern world? We use words as weapons. We interrupt. We raise our voice. We start building a case, listing our grievances, pointing out their flaws. We drown them in a tidal wave of our own defensive words. We engage in a desperate arms race of escalation, believing that the person who talks the loudest, the fastest, and the last will be the victor. We believe in that primal moment that more words equal more strength. This instinct feels like a fundamental part of who we are. It feels like we are standing up for ourselves, fighting for what is right. But what if I told you that this instinct is the single most destructive force in your relationships and your career? What if I told you that this urge to escalate is not a sign of your strength, but a momentary hijacking of your brain? In conflict, your brain is running a program that is thousands of years out of date. It's a survival program designed to save you from a physical predator, not to navigate a disagreement about a quarterly report. And in this chapter, you are going to learn how to override that program. You are going to learn how to face the fire not with a fire hose of reactive words, but with the unshakable calm of a fireproof wall. You will learn to de-escalate any conflict and regain control using fewer words than you ever thought possible. To do this, you must first understand what is happening in your head when you feel that flash of anger. You are experiencing a phenomenon that neuroscientists call an amygdala hijack. We've met your amygdala before. It's your brain's hypervigilant security guard constantly scanning for threats. When it perceives a threat, and a sharp criticism or a personal attack is one of the most potent social threats it can imagine, it pulls a biological fire alarm. It floods your system with cortisol and adrenaline, preparing you for a physical fight or flight. But in doing so, it performs a hostile takeover of your brain. The flood of stress chemicals effectively severs the neural pathways that connect your amygdala to your prefrontal cortex, the calm, rational part of your brain that you've been training throughout this entire audiobook. In that moment of hijack, your rational mind is completely offline. You are literally not thinking straight. You are operating from the most primitive, reactive, and emotional part of your brain. You have the emotional and intellectual capacity of a cornered animal. This is why, after a major argument, you often have trouble remembering exactly what you said. It's why you say things you would never say in a calm state, things that are cruel, exaggerated, and destructive. It wasn't the real you speaking, it was the hijacked you. Now, let's agitate this. Let's feel the devastating cost of this biological reflex. Think of a relationship, a friendship, a romance, a family bond that has been permanently damaged by a single explosive argument. An argument that likely started over something small and insignificant. A disagreement about money, a misunderstanding about plans. Then the hijack happened. Voices were raised, insults were thrown like grenades, a cascade of "you always" and "you never" statements. You were both talking, shouting, but neither of you was listening. You were just reacting, your hijacked amygdalas at war with each other. The argument ends. The cortisol recedes. Your prefrontal cortex slowly, painfully comes back online. And then you are left in the wreckage, surveying the damage. The trust that took years to build has been cracked. The respect has been eroded. The emotional intimacy has been shattered. And for what? For the hollow, fleeting satisfaction of winning an argument that nobody could actually win. The words, spoken in a moment of hijack, cannot be unsaid. They hang in the air forever. This plays out every day in the workplace. A tense meeting about a project that's behind schedule. Someone makes a comment that sounds like blame. The project manager, feeling attacked, gets defensive. They talk over the person, justifying every decision, deflecting responsibility. The other person pushes back. Within minutes, the meeting is no longer about solving the project's problems. It's a toxic battle of egos. The team leaves the room not with a solution, but with simmering resentments and fractured alliances. Productivity grinds to a halt, all because two people allowed their ancient brains to take control. This is the price of verbal escalation. It is a strategy of mutual assured destruction. You may feel a temporary rush of power as you shout your opponent down, but you are burning down the very house you wish to command. It is the ultimate Pyrrhic victory. But you do not have to be a slave to this ancient wiring. You can learn to recognize the hijack as it's happening and choose a different path. You can install a new program. A program of resilience, strength, and intelligent de-escalation. This is the final and most advanced power move. It's called absorb and redirect. It is a three-step process, a form of verbal martial arts. It is designed to disarm your attacker, de-escalate the emotional energy, and shift the dynamic from a battle to a collaboration. Step 1. Absorb. When someone throws a verbal punch at you, an accusation, a criticism, your every instinct will scream at you to do one of two things. Block it with a defensive excuse or throw a counterpunch with an insult of your own. You must do neither. Instead, you are going to do something that feels deeply counterintuitive. You are going to let the punch land. You are going to absorb the energy without reacting. How? You use the tools you've already mastered. You remain anchored, your body language calm and open. You maintain your gaze, not with aggression, but with curiosity. And most importantly, you deploy the power of the pause. You take a deliberate 2-second breath. In these 2 seconds of silence, you are doing something revolutionary. You are refusing to participate in their escalation. You are refusing to give their amygdala the fight it craves. You are creating a pattern interrupt. They expect a reaction, and you give them nothing but calm, grounded presence. This silence is not weakness. It is a profound demonstration of self-control. It is a silent declaration that says, "You cannot pull me into your chaos. I am in command of myself." This single act of absorption instantly changes the power dynamic of the entire room. You have become the calm center of the storm. Step 2. Validate. After you have absorbed the initial energy with silence, you must speak. But what you say is critical. You are not going to defend your position. You are not going to argue the facts. You are going to do something that will feel like magic. You are going to validate their emotion. This is the key that unlocks the amygdala hijack. Remember, the hijacked brain does not care about facts or logic. It is a creature of pure emotion. It is screaming one thing: I am not being heard. The fastest way to calm a hijacked brain, in someone else or in yourself, is to signal that you have heard the emotion behind the words. This does not mean you agree with them. This is the crucial distinction. Validating their emotion is not the same as agreeing with their position. You use a single, simple, concise sentence. If they are angry, you say, "I can see that you are incredibly frustrated by this." If they are disappointed, you say, "I hear the disappointment in your voice." If they are stressed, you say, "It sounds like this has put you under a tremendous amount of pressure." Notice what you are not saying. You are not saying, "You're right to be frustrated," or "I agree I messed up." You are simply holding up a mirror to their emotional state. You are acting as an emotional translator, telling their brain, "Message received." The effect of this is instantaneous and profound. When a person's emotional brain feels heard and understood, the amygdala starts to stand down. It releases its grip on the prefrontal cortex. The cortisol flood begins to recede. You have, with a single sentence, started the process of giving them back their rational mind. You have disarmed them without surrendering a single inch of your own position. Step 3. Redirect. Once you have absorbed the energy and validated the emotion, their defenses are lowered. Their rational brain is beginning to come back online. Now, and only now, can you pivot the conversation from the emotional past to the logical future. You do this with a scalpel question. You redirect their newly re-engaged prefrontal cortex towards a collaborative, problem-solving frame. After saying, "I can see that you are incredibly frustrated by this," you pause, and then you ask, "Help me understand. What would a better outcome look like for you?" After saying, "It sounds like this has put you under a tremendous amount of pressure," you ask, "Moving forward, what is the most important thing we need to solve first?" After saying, "I hear the disappointment in your voice," you ask, "What can I do to help repair the situation?" This redirecting question is the final move in our verbal martial art. You have taken all their aggressive, forward-moving energy, absorbed it, and gracefully redirected it into a constructive direction. You have single-handedly transformed a personal conflict into a shared problem. You have stopped being adversaries and started being collaborators. Let's put it all together. Your colleague storms up to you and says, angrily, "Your team completely missed the deadline. This is a disaster, and it's all your fault." The old you would have been hijacked. "It's not my fault. Your team didn't give us the data we needed," and the war would begin. The new you does this. Absorb. You stand your ground. You take a calm breath. You make eye contact. You hold a 2-second pause. Validate. You say, calmly and genuinely. Redirect. You pause again, and then ask, "Can you walk me through the biggest impact this is having on your end so we can figure out how to fix it?" You have used just 2 sentences. You have not admitted fault. You have not made an excuse. You have not attacked. You have completely de-escalated the situation, maintained your authority, and turned a potential screaming match into a productive working session. This is power. Your mission is to practice this. You will not be perfect at first. Your old wiring is strong. The next time you feel that hot flash of anger, just try to execute step 1. Just absorb. Just pause. That alone is a victory. As you get better, try adding step 2. Validate the emotion. See how it instantly changes the other person's tone. This is the final stage of your transformation. It is the hardest, but it is the most rewarding. It is the art of meeting chaos with calm, aggression with understanding, and conflict with a quiet, firm invitation to build something better together. You now possess a complete toolkit for a new way of being, a new way of influencing. In our final chapter, we will put it all together. We will look at how these moves, these techniques, are not just a series of tricks, but a pathway to rewiring your brain and fundamentally changing your identity, transforming you into the calm, confident, and profoundly influential person you were always meant to be. We have traveled a long way together. We began in a place of noise and anxiety, the neurological prison I called the chatter trap. We began with the deeply ingrained, mistaken belief that more words equaled more worth. And now, we stand at the threshold of a new way of being. You have the tools. You have the blueprints. You have the keys. So we arrive at the final, most important question of all. It's the question that bridges the gap between learning and living, between knowledge and identity. You have the tools. How do you now transform these techniques into an effortless identity? Because the goal of this journey was never to give you a collection of clever tricks to pull out at parties or in meetings. It was not about teaching you to wear a mask of confidence. It was about fundamentally rewiring the way you show up in the world, so that this calm, deliberate power becomes your new default. It's about making this practice so second nature that it is no longer something you do, but simply who you are. Let's take a moment to honor the arsenal you have built. Look back at the path you've walked. You began by confronting the biological realities of the chatter trap, understanding for the first time that your nervous rambling wasn't a character flaw, but a predictable, ancient survival program. You dismantled the myth of more, the cultural lie that has been costing you influence your entire life, and replaced it with the powerful truth of verbal economy. Then you began to build. You took your greatest fear, silence, and forged it into your greatest weapon with the strategic pause. You learned to command a room and give your words the weight they deserve by mastering the void. You flipped the switch from broadcast to receive and gained the listener's edge, turning listening from a passive courtesy into an active strategy for gathering priceless intelligence with tools like the echo. You became an architect, using the message blueprint to structure your thoughts with surgical precision, ensuring every word you speak is a powerful investment, not a wasted expense. You learned that the body never lies, and you began to align your physical presence with your verbal message through the nonverbal power moves of the anchor, the gaze, and the conductor, broadcasting confidence on every channel. You traded the battering ram of statements for the precision of the scalpel question, learning to disarm egos, bypass resistance, and guide any conversation to a productive outcome. You prepared for the crucibles of your life by building a pocket arsenal, ensuring that in moments of high pressure, your most powerful points are ready for instant, flawless deployment. And finally, you walked into the fire. You learned to face conflict not with escalation, but with the unshakable resilience of the absorb and redirect technique, transforming confrontation into collaboration with just a few perfectly chosen words. This is your toolkit. This is your arsenal. But a box of tools, no matter how magnificent, is useless if it just sits in the garage. The key to making these tools an extension of yourself lies in one of the most beautiful and hopeful truths of neuroscience: neuroplasticity. For centuries, we believed the adult brain was fixed like a finished sculpture. We believed that by a certain age, your habits, your personality, and your neural wiring were set in stone. We now know this is completely false. Your brain is not a sculpture. It is a living, dynamic river of electricity and chemistry, and it is constantly, actively reshaping itself based on what you think, what you feel, and, most importantly, what you do. Every single thought you have, every action you take strengthens a specific neural pathway in your brain. Think of your brain as a vast, dense forest. Your habitual reactions, your tendency to fill silences, to get defensive, to ramble when nervous, are like superhighways that have been paved and widened over years and years of repeated use. The moment a trigger appears, your thoughts and actions zoom down this 8-lane highway automatically, without conscious effort. It's the path of least resistance. When you first tried to use the strategic pause, it felt difficult and unnatural, didn't it? That's because you were trying to forge a new path in that dense forest. You were hacking your way through the undergrowth with a machete. It was slow, awkward, and required immense conscious effort. The highway was right there, tempting you with its ease. But here is the magic. The second time you did it, the path was a tiny bit clearer. The 10th time, it was a discernible trail. The 100th time, it was a well-worn path. Every time you consciously choose to pause instead of ramble, every time you choose to ask a question instead of making a statement, every time you choose to absorb and redirect instead of escalating, you are doing two things. You are strengthening the new path, and, just as importantly, you are allowing the old superhighway to fall into disuse. Weeds are beginning to grow on that old road. It is becoming less and less accessible. This is not a metaphor. You are physically changing the structure of your brain. You are weakening the synaptic connections that fire your old reactive patterns, and you are building and myelinating new, powerful synaptic connections for your new, deliberate ones. This is why this journey is not about perfection. It is about practice. Every attempt, even a clumsy one, is a victory. Every time you catch yourself about to interrupt and you stop, you have just laid another paving stone on your new path. Every time you feel that surge of anger and manage to just take one calm breath before responding, you have just reinforced the neural architecture of resilience. This is the long game. It is the patient, deliberate process of transforming your brain one choice at a time. It is the understanding that you are not just changing your habits, you are upgrading your own hardware, you are evolving. And as you continue this practice, something beautiful begins to happen. The techniques start to dissolve. They fade into the background. You no longer think, okay, now I must use the scalpel question. You simply become a more curious person. You no longer consciously think, anchor your feet, control your gaze. You simply begin to inhabit a body that is naturally more grounded and confident. The tools become invisible, and what is left is a new philosophy, a new way of moving through the world. You begin to embody the philosophy of the conductor. Think of a grand symphony orchestra. On stage, there are 100 musicians, all creating a tremendous amount of sound. They are the talkers, the broadcasters, the ones filling the air with noise. Standing before them all is the conductor. The conductor, for the most part, is silent. They create no sound of their own. And yet, they are the most powerful person in the entire room. They control the tempo, the dynamics, the very emotion of the music, all with small, precise, deliberate movements. A subtle lift of the hand can quiet 100 instruments. A focused glance can bring an entire section to roaring life. Their power is not in the noise they make. Their power is in their presence, in their listening, and in the profound impact of their chosen minimal actions. This is who you are becoming. You are stepping off the stage of the noisy musician competing to be heard, and you are stepping onto the podium of the conductor. You will begin to find a new kind of confidence, a confidence that is not rooted in being the smartest person in the room or having the most to say, but in your ability to listen, to understand, and to guide the conversation with a quiet, unshakable presence. You will find a new kind of wisdom, the wisdom that comes from realizing that the most powerful statement is often a perfectly timed silence, and the most insightful answer is often a perfectly crafted question. This is the philosophy of less is more lived out. It is the understanding that your influence is not measured in minutes of airtime, but in moments of impact. And so, I want to leave you with a vision of the person you are now fully equipped to be. Picture yourself 1 year from today. Picture yourself walking into a high-stakes meeting. The air is tense. People are talking over each other, their voices filled with anxiety. The old you would have jumped right into that chaotic fray, adding to the noise, fighting to be heard. But the new you is different. You walk in and take your seat. You are anchored. You are calm. You listen. You let the storm of words swirl around you, gathering intelligence, identifying the true heart of the issue beneath all the noise. And when the moment is just right, when the chaos is at its peak, you speak. Perhaps it's a single, clarifying sentence. Perhaps it is one sharp, reframing question. And the entire room falls silent. Every head turns to you. In that moment of silence that you have created, the entire dynamic of the room shifts. You haven't been the loudest. You have been the most potent. You are the conductor. Picture yourself in a difficult conversation with someone you love. The old you would have met their anger with your own, their accusations with your defenses. But the new you is different. You absorb their words without reacting. You validate their feelings without surrendering your truth. You gently redirect their pain towards a shared solution. You are not a combatant in a war. You are the calm, strong architect of a bridge, building connection where there was once only conflict. Picture yourself moving through your daily life, negotiating for a car, comforting a friend, mentoring a colleague, with a new, quiet sense of ease. The frantic, nervous energy has been replaced by a grounded presence. The compulsive urge to fill every silence has been replaced by a comfortable confidence in your own stillness. You are no longer a leaky faucet, dripping away your power with every wasted word. You are a deep, calm reservoir of influence, ready to be deployed with intention and purpose. This is not a fantasy. This is the direct, inevitable result of putting these principles into practice. This is the person you are actively becoming with every conscious choice you make. You picked up this audiobook because of a title, Power Moves: How to Speak Less and Influence More. You thought you were going to learn a few communication tricks, but my hope is that you now realize you have done something far more profound. You have embarked on a journey to change your relationship with yourself, with others, and with the world. Your greatest power does not lie in the volume of your voice. It lies in the weight of your words. It lies in the depth of your listening. It lies in the calm, quiet strength of your presence. Now go out into the world and show them.